We go. Hey, did you know that No Time Like Joe Time is a podcast? You did. Well, did you know it's also on YouTube? You did. Well, did you know that I'm always looking for guests to be on here? You did. Well, why are we having this conversation? Be a guest on No Time Like Joe Time. Email notimelikejoetime@gmail.com or just ask Joe in person if you're unlucky enough to know him. Welcome to another episode of No Time Like Joe Time, where we watch different media clips to teach us things about life and to do stuff when we're really bored. Because sometimes I like to have background noises while I'm playing Tetris on my phone, but mainly to teach us things. So this episode, I am going to be joined by Morgan Shornack. And if that sounds familiar, well, good, you've been paying attention, because that is Jacob Schornack's wife. Now, I know what you're going to say. Wow, she's so much cooler than him. Glad she was on. Why don't you have her more on than him? You don't need to write it in the comments, okay? It's cool. I can only say that because he's my cousin. So with that, we'll jump into the episode. Hey, thanks for joining me on the podcast, Morgan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, of course. Well, before we begin, I usually do something before we start the episode. And so if it's okay with you, I picked up a little bit of magic trick through my life. Can I quickly show you a quick trick?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. All right. Pick a card.
Well, I don't think I can. We're virtual, so I don't know how that's gonna work.
Right. No problem. Here, I'll pick a card for you. Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to put them all back in the deck. All right. Is that your card?
Well, you didn't show me the cards, so I have no idea.
Oh, right.
What are those cards? Are those playing cards?
Yeah, I couldn't find a regular deck of cards, so these are D&D. So, yeah, I've been trying to work on this for like 30 years. Hasn't gone really well. I try to show it to my parents, and they are always like, "Why are you like this?"
Oh, are they still together?
Oh, no, they separated.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, wait, what? Every time I do an opening like that, I'm like, I'm going to sell this. And then I almost laugh every time. So
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, you didn't break. So that's, yeah.
I really hope some people listen to this and they're like, oh my God, what's happening? Why did they leave this in?
Well, when Jacob told me about it, I was like, wait, you said that to Joe? That's so rude. I don't even remember what it was, but he was like, oh no, it was scripted. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So hopefully people listen to the last two episodes, but yeah, Jacob, it was kind of it was about not taking yourself seriously. So it was like him really ragging on me. And then I did one with my friend Steve, and we were talking about how labels can change the perception of people. And so we were just having a normal conversation. I was like, oh, I'm kind of anxious about my job. And he was like, oh, anxiety. And then he just went on this whole oh, are you freaking out? Are you you must have a panic attack, and just blew everything up. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. So it always somewhat has stuff related to the episode. So you already know magic has something to do with this. So this is going to be kind of a first for us, because when somebody comes on, I'll usually ask them do you want me to choose clips? Do you want to pick it? And Morgan, you picked an episode of Bob's Burgers. And when I watched it, it was so incredibly good. I was like, I think we just have to go through the whole episode. And so I recommend, if you watch it, or even if you don't, you should go check it out. I believe it's season 14, episode 2, and it's called The Amazing Rudy. Phenomenal episode. Great choice. Before we keep going, so I got 2 questions for you. First one, what is your history with Bob's Burgers? When did you get into it, and why do you enjoy it? All that good stuff.
Yeah. So Bob's Burgers, I started watching Bob's Burgers, Jacob and I did several years ago, and we started watching. Before that I had heard about it from a friend, and I just like didn't really get into it. And then I started watching it. Honestly, I think I started watching it at like a hotel room. Like there was nothing else on.
Really?
And I was like, oh, I'm just gonna, put this on.
Yeah.
And then I just got really into it. And so Jacob and I have watched the entire show multiple times. Like it's just very much like a comfort show.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we both really love it. It's it's like one of my favorites. I don't really watch a lot of TV in general, or like especially animated TV. So it was definitely like one of my first like I'm a big fan of this.
Right. When you in that hotel room, when you first started to watch it, was it like an instant, this show has something? Or were you at first like, what is happening? And then it grew on you?
I think it kind of grew on me. Like there's some humor right away. And if you've watched the show like before this episode, I think this episode is a little bit unique. So if
I
you're
agree.
if you're like very familiar with Bob's Burgers, it's a little bit different. It's much more heavy and like not as like funny and humorous necessarily. But I think it was like the humor that kind of got me, and then it really just grew on me from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I started watching it pretty quick. And I think I mean I just love the whole family dynamic. And just I feel like how the kids are in there is going to be how my kids are kind of with me. Like kind of like just whatever, Dad. I see that coming already. And and my favorite is Tina. So I love Tina so much.
Yes.
she slays me just how she delivers lines. And I was at a Comic-Con several years ago, and somebody was cosplaying as Tina. And I'm like, I have to get a picture with you.
So good. Yeah. I love it.
So, maybe just a quick brief overview, because we're going to talk about all of this more in depth. What made you want to pick this episode?
So I think because going back to what I said earlier, like it's a very different episode. I watched it when it first aired, and I watched it by myself, and then Jacob was like, "Oh, how was the new episode?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how it was. I need to watch it again because it was so different, and it was kind of sad. Like it was a heavier episode, a little more emotional than they typically are. And then I watched it a couple more times, and I was like, this is actually a really great episode. It's so sweet. Like the friendship to me was very endearing. And I love seeing more of the side characters, because typically the show is very focused on the Belcher family. And so it's fun to see the newer information about the side characters. And I think it's just like an experience, even if your family hasn't gone through divorce. I think there's difficult situations that everybody has in their families. And so I just thought it was like such a great episode that so many people could relate to. I really enjoyed it after I watched it more.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where I came from really relating it. Cause my parents got divorced, and there was a lot of like, it was not a good divorce. And then years and years afterwards, the gatherings were so uncomfortable. And so I think this episode really does a good job at acknowledging that. But I think one thing I really liked this episode did it didn't make like over the top drama.
Mm-hmm.
It was very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what made it so good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is there weren't like hair pulling, there wasn't fighting, and that's sometimes what I experience. It wasn't anything crazy going on, but it was just my mom left my dad, and within 6 months she's dating somebody else. Now we have to have a Christmas together and pretend it's all cool.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's like a lot of people's experiences, right? And like family dynamics changing really quickly, and like people, kids or otherwise, like not feeling like, you know, like caught up, like, oh, wait, what's happening now? And, that's one thing I love about Bob's Burgers too, is like it shows family in a different way than like the sitcoms or, these very dramatic kind of scenes that we see in other TV. I think it's the Belcher family, they love each other, and it's not like rom-com-y kind of stuff. And this is just another look at like another family dynamic that I think is very real and common.
Yeah, I think too, what I really like about Bob's Burgers is there's some shows, like I think of Family Guy, a lot of it is just like relying on kind of really edgy humor.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say easy laughs, but Bob's Burger earns each laugh it
Totally.
gives. Like it's very well thought out, well written.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
Yeah, we'll kind of set the stage. We're going to play a few clips and kind of go through them. So the episode starts off like right out of the gates. So it has normal sized Rudy. I forgot there were two Rudys, normal sized and pocket sized Rudy. And he's in bed. He's clinging onto a fish, and just you can tell there's some anxiety. And I think it handles anxiety so well.
Mm-hmm.
So the first clip I'm going to play. So this is a clip after he wakes up. He's with his dad. They're talking about they're going to have a family dinner with the dad, the mom, and then basically both of their significant others. And they're just kind of talking about it. And you can tell they're trying to be excited about it, but there's a lot of anxiety behind it.
Hey, breakfast.
Okay, coming.
I made something pretty
So I'm going to start it right when he
us.
puts the eggs down.
It's eggs. That's why I said that.
I looked up the menu for the restaurant we're going to tonight, and they have breadsticks.
Oh, yum. That's great.
Yep, and dipping sauces, if you can believe it. You excited? I'm excited.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes.
And now I'm familiar with the menu, so I can just relax and enjoy the evening.
Focus on having fun with everybody.
Because it's going to be so fun.
For sure.
You jazzed?
Very jazzed.
Jazz twins, aren't we? Okay, I'm going to go get the car washed, and then I need to exchange a shirt at the mall. You want to come?
Sure.
Decided to get a size bigger. Been putting on a few muscles lately. A little bit.
Uh-huh.
Is this muscle bigger?
Oh, yes.
Feel it.
Whoa. Oh, wait, no, that's your elbow. Whoa.
Yep, that's because I installed that pull-up bar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had someone else install it for me, but I use it a couple times a month.
Hey, Dad, can we stop at the magic store on the way to the mall? I want to get a new trick for tonight.
Oh, right, of course. The main event of these dinners, Tableside Magic by the Amazing Rudy.
I mean, I try to bring it.
And you do bring it. Now, can you make my armpit eczema disappear? Just a little joke. It's under control, pretty much.
Yeah, it is. Fist bump. Oh, wait, no, I thought...
Yeah, I was going for the high five. So,
is that what we're fist bumping?
Yeah, okay, no, you said fist bump, so let's, hold on. Here we go.
Okay, now you're just grabbing
okay, here I go. I'm gonna let go.
So many things I like about that clip. One, I think it's both funny but relatable for me, where he's like, I looked at the menu and I know what's on there, so now I can just know what to order and relax.
Totally. I could also relate to that. Like, I know so many of us like look up menus before, like immediately once we have the dinner plans, like we're prepared ahead of time. And you're just like at the restaurant, like looking at the menu, pretending like you haven't already pre-selected what you're going to have. Yes.
All right. Well, yes, I do need a little bit more time. Thank you. Yeah, totally. And I love just... there's a few times that are like, are you excited? Yeah. You can feel the force in that of like, we're excited.
And I
Yeah.
think like also like I mean the holidays just wrapped up, like we
Yeah.
all love our families, whatever, but like I think we could probably all relate to a little bit of like the stress of like,
Yeah.
okay, we're getting together with family and like all of these gatherings and like we can
Hmm.
relate to that feeling, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you and your husband, Jacob, you've got some of your family here. Well, are all of your family in Minnesota, or do you?
So my grandparents live in Florida now, but
Okay.
my siblings and my dad, and his partner live in Minnesota. So that's where
Okay.
we spend the holidays.
Okay. And how are the holidays for you? Is it crazy, busy, stressful?
Yeah, I think we've gotten it down to like I never want to say a science because that seems too precise, but it's
Yeah.
like we have 3 families to go to.
Hmm.
We make the 3 days, spread it out and
Hmm.
like hit the different families that we need to. But it like it's a lot of coordinating, a lot of making sure that we're in the
Yeah.
right place at the right time and
Right.
all of those things.
Yeah, I can relate. I think I would say the same thing. It's kind of a science where it's gotten better recently because what it used to be is my mom would be like 3 months in advance, like, hey, can we meet this day? And then my dad would be like the night before, oh, should we get together tomorrow? And we're like, Dad, we got plans, dude. But
Yeah.
now he's better at it. And my wife's family is in Iowa. So I think where I really lucked out is I don't have any family pressuring me. They're like, hey, if you can come, awesome. If you can't, we get it.
Mhm.
So that's really nice. I know not all families have that luxury, but very grateful
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah, and I think that's like back to the episode too. Like I think as we continue through the episode, there's definitely like this pull of like maintaining traditions as families change over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
Yeah.
a lot of people can relate to that in terms of like
Yeah.
when they get married or in a partnership and splitting family time. And,
Mm-hmm.
once you have kids, that changes things. And
Yeah.
so I think, it's always the push pull of like maintaining traditions, but needing enough flexibility to
Right.
allow the dynamics to change over time. And that can be really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. And I think this episode does a great job because he's at one scene, we'll talk about it as it goes on. He's thinking back to what he's done in the past and how it's changed.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I want to point out, this is going to come into play later. So he talked about stopping by the magic store. And so just put that in your back pocket, everybody. That's going to come into play. So speaking of that, so the next clip I'm going to play is Rudy goes to the magic store with his dad. And well, his dad doesn't go in because he's like, magician never reveals what he's buying. So like Rudy's clearly taking this seriously. So I will play that clip.
Beauty?
Oh, hi, Esmeralda. Yeah, it's me. Horace here, too?
No, he's at a Cape conference in Cape Cod. Told him to bring me back something flashy. Looking for anything in particular?
Well, looking for something that can really wow a group and work in a restaurant situation.
Okay.
So maybe it could be kind of an icebreaker, maybe sort of a conversation piece. Just, a magic trick that brings all of humanity together, even in the most awkward of fine dining experiences. Under $13, please.
All right, Teeny Houdini. We just got a new sleeve scarf trick in. 2 more scarves in this one. Okay, how about rings?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, let me think. Is this a fancy restaurant?
They serve breadsticks.
Oh, I have just the thing. Sodium polyacrylate.
Sodium poly, what'd you say?
Step over here and I'll show you how it works. It'll be perfect for the setting.
So yeah, that was not Morty, Rudy in the magic shop. The line I love the most is he's looking for something to break the ice and bring all humanity together.
In a fine dining experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think this episode is so like smart because like for me, my brother and I, our magic tricks, because we'll see, I'm kind of skipping ahead, sorry. Rudy does magic tricks at dinner, and that's kind of how he almost gets through them. For me and my brother, we were like, our sense of humors were on 11. Like we were just trying to make everybody laugh because we were just so uncomfortable and we didn't want to sit with that. And just that bringing humanity together, because that's what I felt, because there was a lot of tension in our get-togethers. Because, I mean, my parents, like, they split up a few weeks before my brother's wedding. And so there were some feelings with, you know, my brother and his wife about that, understandably. And so it was just like we just wanted to try to get everybody to get along.
Yeah, I I think so many kids feel that way, right? Like I think that's such a common experience of like wanting to keep the peace and then you're just stuck in this new situation and you're like, I didn't choose this. Like I think that's also an element of like this is all out of Rudy's control. Like he doesn't get to choose who's at dinner. This is just
Yeah.
something that they're doing. So he's trying to continue because I think part of the episode is it like going back to as he was, you know, younger. This is like one thing I love about Rudy is like he's very serious about the things he enjoys. Like
Yeah.
he's very serious about magic.
Mhm.
He is like I was watching an episode and he was like picking out all of his hats that he was going to bring to have at his mom's house. And he's like very passionate about his
Yeah.
hats. Like so you know, he's just trying to not to get lost in this like transition too of like, hey, like I'm still special. I'm still part of this family and I want to maintain these things that I'm doing, but also using it as like that peacemaking and to break the tension.
Yeah. Have you ever had, you know, I'm going to put in quotations, magic or something you would, I don't want to say it's a defense mechanism, but something that would help you get through family gatherings or anything like that?
Oh yeah, totally. It's a good question. I spent some time with my siblings and my grandparents in Florida in November, kind of to celebrate the holidays in advance. And it's not often that I get together with that whole part of my family. And that's like it's like a very difficult family system. But I think like a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism that I developed is being very controlled about everything. And like my family kind of puts me in a position of like having to organize everything and be the responsible party a lot. I'm the oldest and like of the kids. And so my family kept making these comments about how I'm very like uptight or like too serious. And I came home and I was reflecting on it and I was like, well, that's my defense mechanism because I'm like trying to like be very button up and very like, hey, this is what's going to happen and have a like try to maintain control over that. And so I think like that's just like the box that I fit in and that you know helps our family maintain homeostasis of like no one's rocking the boat, like Morgan's in charge and you know this person does this and everyone kind of fits their role.
Yeah. You know, sometimes, you know, not to veer off, but, you know, I think about with my family, I wonder if other people relied on our coping mechanism to get through, like, okay, Jer and Joe need to be really funny to make this okay. And so I wonder if that's maybe something that it's for your family where they're kind of like almost relying on you to do this. And that's like do you know, have they ever gotten together and you weren't able to join them? And it's just.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely they've gotten together without me. And I wonder if they fall into their own patterns. And I think that's like that's like a family system thing. And I think you're right. We all rely on each other to do certain things. And when someone tries to go outside of that, it rocks the boat and it makes it a little bit uncomfortable for everybody. So, yeah, I'm sure like with your family, everyone was like kind of relying on that.
Yeah.
And that was like, this is what's making this work right now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it just again, brilliant. So I'm going to probably play a little bit more clips in this episode than most because we're just following one episode. And I originally hadn't planned on this, but you talked about the hats. There is a hat scene in here.
Oh, that's
And-
right. Yes.
And so I will play that scene because it's very funny. And so where we're at now, so they got their car wash and then they went to the mall and his dad's exchanging a shirt and Rudy's with him. And so he's about to break away for thus said hats.
Better off head?
Oh, the kiosk?
Yeah, maybe I'll wear a hat tonight. A little head candy never hurt.
Okay, yeah, sure. Hey, don't try on any hats I wouldn't try on.
I know, no berets.
They just don't work with our family's head shape.
Not really me, but not me. Ooh, now that's a daring Danny.
The people made wishes with those coins, Louise.
But what if their wish was for us to use that change to get a giant chocolate chip cookie?
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot that's how the Belchers came into the show, or that episode. Yeah, that's so funny. That's something I really appreciate about Rudy as a character. Like he's just like confident about the things he likes. I just like really appreciate that.
There's so many, like just the humor side of that. I love his line. Well, it's not really me, but it's also not me. Or I don't remember how he said it, but just like, what?
Little head candy never hurt
Yeah, that
anybody.
was the other one I was gonna say. Just
It's so good. Yeah.
and I let it go a little bit longer because I did want to. You hear the Belcher family, and we were talking about this before we started. That what they do a good job of is, I mean, this could have been another episode of whatever the Belchers were doing, and we're just coming into that episode, and it's very natural feeling. And so Rudy kind of sees this and I don't know. Do you want to talk about like how he seems to get drawn to the Belcher family? Is that how you kind of saw that?
Yeah, I did. I think it's almost like the anxiety that you're talking about that he's feeling. And he's like, oh, this is like, maybe I could kind of get out of this, or like maybe I could like distract myself a little bit. And he is very close with Louise, so I think seeing Louise there might have been like a comfort for him. So I wonder if that was part of it. But yeah, I interpreted that the same way. Yeah,
because I what I kind of looked at is I wonder if there was any sense of like that family's whole. Because I felt that a lot right afterwards. Especially like we didn't have a lot of family traditions, but the one we did have is on Christmas, we'd make cinnamon rolls and mimosas. And that was like a really good memory of my original organic family. I don't know why I said organic. But
non-GMO.
Yeah. and so when we left that, like next few Christmases were really hard. And I remember when I first met Rachel's family, I was just like, you guys come to sometimes complain about like these little bickerings you guys have, but you have no idea how lucky you are. Like,
oh my gosh, I feel that, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I mean, I'm probably watching it through my eyes on that, just looking at that and being like, oh, that just looks so nice to be a part of.
No, I think that's a really good observation, and I hadn't thought about. And we'll get to this, but later, like Rudy does end up at the Belcher's house again, like for dinner, and so I do wonder. That's a really good point. If that's part of that too, of a little bit of comparison of I don't have that anymore, and I really want that, and they're having fun, and he's an only child too, so he doesn't have siblings to kind of help him through this also.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And that's something I feel fortunate about. I did have my brother, and we kind of had a saying like we can shit talk our parents, but nobody else can. And
Yeah.
boy, did we shit talk our parents. But
Yeah.
but we would get very defensive if anybody else were like, what's wrong with your dad? I'd be like, screw you.
Nothing's wrong with him.
Yeah, he's perfect. He's the most greatest man I've ever met.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, so and one thing I appreciate about it too is nothing is over the top, because I think this show could have taken things over the top. And like, I think if this was like a 1990s show, the Belcher family would have been really perfect.
Mm.
And like, they've got their flaws. I mean, I think if I followed it correctly, Gene gets to pick what dinner to eat because he got a B on his science. I don't know if it was a test or what, but it's, I don't know. I watched it 2 or 3 times. All I know, it's a several layer lasagna of stuff that does not belong together.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He did like something, I don't want to say mediocre, but like not like, like outstanding. And they're like, oh, like Gene did something pretty good. And so he gets to do this crazy thing that no one really wants to do, but they're just like supporting their kid.
I'm glad you said that, because I think one thing, those little things you appreciate. So I remember when Jacob was in, I think, high school, might have been middle school, he was in a production of Beauty and the Beast. And he had a very minor role. He was a spoon. And his parents got him a golden spoon afterwards. My family, our reaction was like, that's so stupid. You just this little part. And that was kind of fed to me by my parents. But as I gotten older and now I'm a dad, I'm like, no, that's awesome. That was so cool. And it's really cool to see this, like, just that little thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's a good point. Like celebrating your kids, like,
yeah,
no matter what it is. And I think that like teaches you something different as you, like, how you interpret that stuff as you get older is like, like the feeling of like, well, my family never celebrated anything that I did, and I had to be perfect or achieve this certain level to get any appreciation. Versus like, we're going to appreciate everything you do because you're a good person and like, we love you and, everything matters. And maybe there's like a fine balance in there that parents need to kind of decide where they land. But I think the Belchers like family responding in that way of like, hey, you did something good and we're going to reward you with something we know you like. He likes doing these kind of like crazy concoctions. So
exactly. And it's there's another clip I'm going to play from it later on. So the episode kind of goes on. He interacts with the Belcher family. They invite him over for the lasagna, and he tells them he's got dinner plans, he can't. And so the next clip I want to go to is everybody's meeting at the restaurant. And there's not a lot happening in this, but I wanted to play this clip for how I think they just nail, like, they're not doing a bit here. It's just they're setting up this quiet uncomfortability.
Is this like when they're talking about drinks and like waiting?
Yes. Exactly. It's so like, I don't know. It's really good. So it's not very long. I'll play the clip.
So should we get a drink at the bar?
A drink? Oh, it looks kind of crowded.
I could try and get us drinks and bring them back here.
Oh, that's nice of you. I'm good. Or unless you want to. If you are going, I'd take a glass of red wine if they have a... Vicky, what's the red wine?
I have no idea.
Okay, maybe a margarita. Or, you know what, it's so hard to carry 4 drinks. Just don't worry about it. It's actually, I'm
Stevelets, Party of 5?
Oh, that's us. Just like the show. The TV show, Party of 5.
I'm sorry, I don't know it.
Sure you do. It was really popular in the 90s.
I was born in 2002.
All right, let's just go.
I was born born in 2002. Okay.
I was gonna.
I've never even heard of the 90s.
I never heard of the 90s. So before going to the deep dive, so just comedically, I do love that line. I think I love like Party 5, like the show. I don't know what that is. Yes, you do. Just like, and then I love that because I was born in 1984, and I'm hitting a point where I'm like, wow, that's a long time ago. And hearing people who were born in like 2000, or my son is 8 and he was born in 2015.
How does that happen? It's like, wait, what year is it?
Know, yeah. It just goes so quick. So that really made me laugh. But so if you're watching this on YouTube, because of copyright issues, I don't know if I'm actually going to get the video up there. But basically what the scene is, we're looking at Rudy, and it's just him. And we just see like the necks down of the rest of the family. And you can there's this little bit awkward exchange like between his dad and his mom's boyfriend. We're like, oh, we can get drinks. Well, I mean, if you want. No, there's just a lot. I mean, it's not a lot. But I wish I could put into words why this scene connects with me so much, but it just does.
Yeah. Well, I think like I could think of being in those situations myself where like, like you're meeting a new group of people and it's like very awkward. And I also think like Rudy's dad is so clearly so nervous about this encounter that he's about to have. And like, I just like feel for him because there's also like a whole part about like his shirt, like if he should tuck his shirt in. And, like there's just so many times you see throughout the episode that he's very nervous about this. Like, I feel for him, but also like Rudy's just a kid in this situation and they're talking about, getting drinks or not. And he's just nervous there. And like, there's these new partners. And so I agree with you. I think that it's like, from the adult perspective, it's awkward. And for a kid's perspective, that has to be really challenging of like, I don't even know where I fit in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking this, but I almost feel like somehow they are putting us in Rudy's seat because, like I said, I can't quite explain why it's awkward. And I think he knows it's awkward, but he may not be able to totally put it together. And, the other thing I was kind of watching, his mom and her boyfriend, who had been together for a while, they were holding hands. And his dad, and I don't even think I don't know if it's technically his girlfriend yet, but you can tell like they don't have as much of a flow going on in their relationship. And that was always kind of tricky. Like when my parents would get together. So my parents we could never do something like this. Like my parents did not get along very well, and just not great. They're great people. If you're listening, Mom and Dad, we love you. Ha, great people. Don't call me. But like when they would get together and there's like their significant other was, I don't want to say it was a competition, but there always seemed to be like my stepdad's a doctor. My mom would mention that. My dad, he's a very attractive guy. He can pull the ladies in. So I think he kind of, trying to think of how to say this without sounding weird. I'm just going to use the phrase trophy wife. I think that's how he wanted to present. And just, I always got the sense that they wanted to show the other they were doing really well. So I don't necessarily get that from this episode, but I don't know, that was just something I was kind of thinking about with the awkwardness.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think part of it too is from Rudy's dad. Like if you've watched the show before, Rudy's dad comes kind of in and out throughout the seasons, but he's like chronically looking for a partner. Like he never can have, like he never has a long-term relationship. Like it seems like Rudy's mom does.
Yeah.
And at least in this episode, that's what it looks like. And so I wonder if that's part of it too, is
Yeah.
like, he's bringing this newer person in, and it does seem like they haven't been together very long. And, he's just kind of looking for someone else.
Yeah, exactly. No, you could definitely feel that. And so I don't know. All this subtle stuff is really good. So one thing that's going to play in the future, we forgot to mention, is before they leave for the dinner, they're getting nervous, and then they both realize they have to poop. And
so good.
And so, like, and that's what else is so awesome about the episode is like they set up stuff you think is going to be a one-off, but it like comes back to play. So like they set up like, oh, if one of these guys have to poop, it's going to take a while. Going to the next scene. So now they've sat down at the table and Rudy's about to perform his trick. So we're going to see how that goes. So here's the clip.
Welcome, everyone. I am Rudy, the illusionary visionary.
I love it.
And now, empty cup, right? Please pass it around and confirm that this is, in fact, a normal plastic cup.
Yep, empty.
Beer pong, anyone?
Totally normal.
Couldn't be more empty.
And now I take this totally normal water here,
Yeah.
and I will pour it into the cup, say a few magic words, Mandy Patinkin, Mandy Patinkin. I will turn it over, and the water will be gone.
Oh my God,
boy.
my suede slacks!
I'm sorry, that wasn't supposed to happen like that. I didn't do enough banter. I was supposed to wait 30 seconds.
That's okay, honey. I loved it. Loved the trick. Can we, get some napkins over here?
But it didn't work.
Anything I can help you with, folks?
It's just a little spill. No big deal.
A towel or some napkins would be great. What is this stuff?
Sodium polyacrylate.
What?
I'm not supposed to reveal my tricks.
That's okay to tell if it stains.
Sodium polyacrylate. I don't think it stains. It's what they put in diapers.
It's
Is
what?
what?
I was supposed to wait for the powder to absorb the water.
Hey, don't sweat it. How about you try the trick again after dessert?
No, I can't. I only brought one packet. I gotta go to the bathroom. Excuse me.
You have to watch the episode to feel the full impact of everything that just happened. So starting with before he did the magic, there was a flashback of him through the years doing the tricks. And one thing I didn't notice until this watch, so the first time he did it, his parents are sitting next to each other holding hands. The next one, they're sitting slightly apart. And then the final, they're sitting across from each other. And then into this. And I also noticed that every time he did that, it seemed his parents kind of came to life. And it was like a bonding thing. And so then it goes into this one. And you feel for Rudy so much.
It's heartbreaking. It is the first time I watched it, it just like, oh my God, I could feel my heart breaking for him. It was so sad to watch.
And like when I was watching this, part of me was waiting for the joke, but it didn't come.
No.
And it was just like, oh, and like, I feel like I'd have to watch this 10 more times to try to unpack exactly what pain he was feeling. Because obviously I don't think it's more than just the magic trick didn't go right. I don't know if it was he felt responsible for making the night well, or if this was the only time he could feel like they were a family again. But whatever it was, yeah.
I think you're right. It's probably both of those things. And I think it goes back to what we're talking about with family roles. Like this was his role. And like you mentioned with like every time it brought the family to life. And even in this episode's like current day, you could see that Rudy's parents were both like interacting in a different way when that was happening. Like they were both very excited. They were talking to each other and him. And so they kind of fell back into that old role because Rudy did that. And I think maybe he didn't consciously know this, but like that was the role he was filling. And so there's so much expectation and like the weight of, like you said, like, this is what makes the night go well. This is what keeps us together as a family. And then, you know, the disappointment of it not working is just, that's a lot of weight for a little kid.
Oh gosh, that's such a good insight, because I mean, you can kind of play off how many kids do feel like it's their fault. And when I went to try to find YouTube clips for this, there's already a lot of commentary videos on this, and they were all like, this episode's going to make you cry.
Totally.
And it is. And so it's, I don't know, there's so much to it. And I'm going to kind of add on to that. So he starts walking away. He's like, I'm going to go clean up. It shows him heading towards the bathroom, but then he looks at the exit and he leaves. Just like walks out. And so this is just a really quick clip, but it's so heartbreaking. It's just him walking on the street. And again, like, you kind of expect there to be some kind of joke, and it doesn't come. I think that's what makes it so good. So this is a pretty quick clip.
Are you all right?
Oh, yeah, totally. That's okay. Thank you for nice to meet you.
And good night to you. And good night to you. And good night to you. And good night to you. And good night to you. And to you, Kevin.
Good night to
Oh, just heartbreaking.
It's so sad. Yeah.
And just like that little interaction with that lady. Oh man, I felt that, like, just pushing through the tears.
They did such a good job of really portraying the emotion of it, and I think it's because it's super relatable too. Like, I think all of us have felt that way, and obviously not in the same scenario, but like, I think we can relate to that feeling. And so it's just so, it is really heartbreaking. And then I like him ending up back at the Belchers, back to your point. I do think that is, I do wonder if that's partially like, well, this is a happy family. Like, I know I could come here and everyone's going to be at dinner and it's going to be fun, or like funny at least.
Exactly. And that's kind of where I left off. So he comes and he's looking into the window, and it's so good because you can see his reflection and you can just see the sadness in him, but he's just like, he's looking into that, like, oh, this is something. And I think, like you said, like, he does have a closer relationship with Louise. So I'm sure that's part of it too. So he starts going, so he goes into the Belchers and he tells them basically, no, it got moved. No dinner tonight, so I'm free. And there's a scene that I really like. And I think it's just somehow I see Rudy kind of coming at ease. So it's after they make the lasagna and they're about to eat it, and just kind of what happens afterwards.
Dream a reality without the people who were there to help me along the way. Mom, who's the wind beneath my noodles and the boss of all my sauce. Dad, for not standing in my way with Mom. Tina and Louise for letting me shine brighter than you ever could. Rudy, love you, bro. Now let's eat. Okay, focus group. I want everyone's reaction summed up in one word. Mom, go.
A lot.
Okay, that's 2 words, but I'll let it slide because you made it. Dad.
So much.
Wrong. Louise.
Food? Question mark?
Strike that from the record. Tina.
A lot of cheese and bacon and noodles and red sauce and ground beef and chives and sour cream and is that a piece of bagel?
Yep, cinnamon raisin. 1 word, please.
Okay, I'll say bagel.
I feel like you guys aren't rising to the challenge. Rudy, reaction.
1 word, groundbreaking. It's definitely better than what I ordered.
What you ordered?
Ordered myself to eat at home. I said, Rudy, I order you to eat this food.
Okay. Rudy, are you sure your parents know where you are?
Oh, yeah. I asked them if I could come over, and they said, oh, yeah.
Comedic notes on that. So many. I like he's thanking everybody. Dad for not getting in my way of Mom. Luis and Tina for letting me shine brighter than you ever could.
Yeah. And then there's like, I don't know if we're gonna talk about this because it's very much like a side piece, but like the interaction between Bob and Linda when they kind of are figuring out that Rudy's parents do not know that he is there.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my gosh, like as a parent, I like
yeah.
They're like, okay, we're just gonna call your mom.
Right, exactly. And it's the other thing I kind of liked about this, I felt this is like really the first scene where Rudy seemed at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there was more to that line of this was definitely better than what I ordered. And just because this is like if I just saw this scene and I didn't see the rest of the episode, I'm like, oh, Rudy's doing great. So something about being with the Belchers is just comforting for him.
Yeah, you're right. And again, I do wonder if it goes back to like, man, this is what I thought I had when I was younger, and now things have changed so much, and I don't have this full family like they do. And
so then what happens next, kind of like what you were saying, Morgan, is Bob and Tina are like, do they really know? So they call his dad. He doesn't hear it's ringing. They can't leave a voicemail because the voicemail's closed. And well, I should take a step back because they're asking who they should call.
Right.
And they're like, do we call your mom? Do we call your dad? Like, pick one. Not like you have to pick one, but just to call. And I think that sets up like a kind of.
It's very funny. It's very funny. Yeah. And you could just tell that they're trying to be very sensitive about like Rudy's situation and that he goes between both mom and dad and but also being like, we really need to get a hold of a parent.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to think where I want to play this because there's some really funny notes in this. But I might say you have to watch it to find all the good stuff. So I'm going to head towards the end where Rudy does confess that he essentially ran away. And it does cut back to the restaurant at one point, and they're like, well, he's been away for a while. But they chalk it up to like, oh, sometimes he is in the restroom for a while. But they do end up getting a hold of his parents. They were a little rattled, but everything's okay. So this is towards the end of the episode. He's getting ready to go, and this is an exchange between him and Louise.
I was walking and not crying at all. Then I was here, and it's that way a few blocks.
Oh, plate and fork?
Yeah.
How is it?
I don't know. Kind of like a place where adults eat food.
Sounds like a hoot. Probably a good thing if I tag along, huh? Stay for dinner, make amusing small talk.
Oh, really? I mean, yeah. If you come, you can have half my meal, and then my dad can drop you off here on our way home.
Sure. That lasagna was more like an appetizer anyway.
Oh, please.
So I'll walk Rudes back to his foods? Sound good?
It's kind of dark.
Yeah, it's not a problem. I can get my brass knuckles. Anyone messes with us on the way, you dazzle them with magic, and I'll dazzle them with pain.
That's my girl.
You have brass knuckles?
Yeah, Christmas? Last year?
Why did Santa bring those to you?
Well, maybe Santa's from the streets.
Santa wasn't worried about siblings being knuckled?
Stop.
Okay, you can go. Maybe no brass knuckles, though. Just bare fists.
Come on, Rudy.
Well, bye, and thanks again.
I'll call your parents and tell them you and Louise are on your way over. And, Louise, let me give you some money so you can pay for your food. Bob, you got any money?
How much money?
$8?
Okay, I'm sure there's a soup or something.
I'm not getting soup, but I'll give them the $8 and I'll tell them you're good for the rest.
You think they'll believe it?
You can work out a payment plan.
Okay, we're going. Goodbye.
You two, have fun.
Yeah, bye. Don't you have a lasagna to finish?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Just a great ending.
That's so good. I also just almost cry laughing when they're talking about Louise's brass knuckles. Maybe Santa's from the street. It's so good.
Yeah, and there was some stuff. I almost went back further. That it's like they packed all the jokes for the episode in this one scene.
Yes, it's so funny.
But
but I love that part, and that's why I picked this episode, because I loved it so much. Just Louise picked up on what was going on without the conversation. Like, she just knew, because she's close with Rudy. She's, there's some emotional intelligence there, and she just picked up on it and knew, I think, that he didn't want it to be a big deal. Like, he didn't want to talk about it, but he needed support. And so she just casually, is like, oh, this is what I'm going to do to support my friend. And you can tell instantly that it helps him out. It's exactly what he needed. I loved that so much. And also, like, if you watch the show, I do think it kind of shows some growth in Louise as a character too. Yeah. Because the same episode I was talking about with, like, Rudy packing his stuff to go to his mom's house was when they were gonna Louise brought the bridge that was gonna explode to Rudy's mom's house, and he really didn't want that. And she made a mean comment to him. And so she was, like, grappling with, like, guilt over making a mean comment towards Rudy. And so I think it just shows a lot of, like, growth in her as a character, which is hard to do when, like, the characters stay the same age the whole show. So I just, like, I thought there was so much in those couple of minutes. It was so good.
Yeah, you're dead on, I think, because when I was watching it, when they walk into the restaurant, they look at each other, just give each other this nod. Like, we got in, like, that says it all. And they go back into the restaurant. You can just tell it's a different atmosphere. And he hugs his parents. And and you're right. Because when I saw this, I was like, I didn't know how it was going to end. And I thought maybe they were going to have, like, this big, like, climax where they're like, oh, so sorry. Here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I'm going through. And they didn't need to. It just ended on the right note. And I think you're dead on just that spot. I'm going to put you in the hot seat. Have you had a friend like Louise come beside you during a situation where you were just like, needed somebody and they were there?
Yeah, I mean, not until very recently in my life, it took me into adulthood to find that. And I think that's why this episode, like, really hit me, as I had a situation recently where like, a friend who's been my friend for a long time, but really, like, stepped up for me in a big way when I was going through something difficult, and just did exactly what I needed her to do without me telling her. She just kind of knew, and it made such a huge difference for me. And so, like, I could really feel that. Like, it was a completely different situation, but it just it made, like, a world of difference. And so I think it just, like, shows the power of, like, having a good friend, and you don't need to tell them everything or, tell them exactly what you need, but they just know you so well that they can kind of help fill in some of those things for you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of times it's the little things that add up,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm thinking of two people. One, I tell this story a lot you'd never know what's going to change someone's life.
Mm.
And one of my mentors, he was my youth leader, and I had just gotten my driver's license, and I met him at church, and his car was the only car in the parking lot. And I was like, how funny would that be if I crashed into his car? Like, there's nothing else there. So I went in and I was like, Matt, what would you do if I said I crashed into your car? And he goes, it's just a car.
Mm.
And that hit me so hard, because that was the first time I realized I was more important than a thing.
Mm.
And that, like, that is engraved in my mind. He's like, I don't remember that at all. I'm like, of course you wouldn't. It was, but just that little thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rachel was, for me, Luis is very much Rachel, my wife, because when my parents first split, my brother had his wife. And so they kind of had each other to lean on, but I was by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents were, they were grieving in their own way. So it was very lonely for me during that time. And then when Rachel came in, like, I had somebody then to experience this with. And she, to this day, she always does this great job of just coming as she is and not judging the family. Just like, she'll sometimes see the craziness that happens, but she's just like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Okay, let's move on. So super, super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we all need those people. And I think the show just does a really good job showing that, and like how dramatically it changed the situation, just Louise being there for him. And like you said, it's the small things, like just coming to dinner made the biggest difference. Like, she didn't need to solve any problems for him, but just really your presence there is what was needed.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So great episode. So I'm going to have to change the end format, because usually I'll ask my guests 3 questions about the clips, but it doesn't quite apply here. So I have to switch them a little bit. So usually I'll ask, which clip did you think was the funniest? But I'm going to switch it to, in this episode, what was the funniest joke to you? Whether we showed it or not.
Yeah, honestly, like the whole like brass knuckles exchange like between Bob and Linda of like, he wasn't worried about brass knuckles and siblings. Like that's just so funny.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, perfect for the character.
Yeah. It's the little things that always get me. And so when Gene's given his speech and he goes, Dad, for not standing in my way of Mom, and you just hear Bob go like, it just makes this little grunt. Like,
so
he's
funny.
So used to it.
Yeah.
Then typically the next question I'd ask is, which clip, do you feel like you learned the most from? I'm going to ask, which clip gave you the feels the most, like either hit you the hardest or you felt the most from?
Yeah, probably when the magic trick doesn't go right. And like, I think the other part of that is his dad's like date's reaction to what happened is pretty awful, in my opinion. Like, she's just so focused on staining her stupid suede pants. And like, obviously, like, there's a kid who's really sad.
Yeah.
And so I like that, on top of just like the general feeling of like, oh, this didn't work out the way he wanted it to, just like really hit me. It was very, very sad and upsetting how the partner handled it.
Yeah, you swayed my answer, actually, because I was going to go with that scene where he's walking by himself.
I mean,
but I got to go with you, because I mean, when you were saying like his dad has always been trying to find a partner, I mean, to have that happen, oh man, to maybe feel like you messed up things for his dad.
Yeah.
I think like that's even more. So I have to agree with you.
Yeah.
And then the final question is, and I think I can do as is, of all the clips we watched which clip do you think we could, like, if we had to do another episode, which one could we dive in and do a whole episode just looking at it and pulling more info out of it?
Probably that last one where, like Rudy is going back to the restaurant with Louise.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more there just between the two of them, and like how they might have handled that and like what led up to that. So yeah, I think probably that last one, there's a lot more we could talk about there.
Yeah, I'm tied between that one and the just any interactions with the Belchers. Just because I'm just so, because they don't make it obvious what he's longing for, so I think it's kind of up for interpretation. So I think either of those two scenes would be really good. Oh, well, you picked a great episode.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope it inspires people who haven't watched Bob's Burgers to go ahead and watch it, because it's so good. Also, your story about hitting the only car in the parking lot. There is a Bob's Burgers episode where Tina does that.
Yes, I've seen that one. It is so good.
So funny.
Yes.
So highly recommend that one as well.
It was really funny. So one thing I always ask, if anybody listens to this and they're like, that Morgan person's pretty cool, are you okay with people reaching out to you?
Honestly, I don't really, I'm not on socials really. So, if you're already my friend, you can message me, but beyond that, you probably can't find me.
Yeah. So no. Don't try to find her, you sickos.
Yep, exactly.
For me, I have a second podcast called Two Voices, One Story. It's something my wife and I have been doing for a while. It's kind of looking at mental health in different situations we've gone through, and just really a lot more deeper, but more personal experiences. So awesome. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for coming on and talking Bob's Burgers with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll see you all next time.